The Bible says something is coming called the mark of the beast. Now it says, he causeth all, and by he it means the Antichrist. The Antichrist causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man can buy or sell save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Okay? So this is coming. And if you look at the way it's described, it says no man can buy or sell without it. So we believe this is a form of technology, something kind of like the RFID technology, some sort of microchip technology where there would be a cashless society and all your money would be on a chip in your hand. Okay? We've already seen videos of them microchipping people. We've already seen all that. They've been doing it with pets to keep track of where pets are. They can track them. We've seen this type of technology, and we believe it's going to be something of that kind of nature. The mark of the beast. And it says that all would receive it, meaning not just every person on the planet, but the Antichrist will cause all to be in a situation where they need to receive this chip in their hand, this mark of the beast, or they won't be able to buy or sell. In other words, basically they're going to be cut off from society, being able to do anything, whether it's buy groceries or work or be able to have health care or whatever the case may be, even some sort of phone services or whatever, right? They'll be cut off from society if they don't have the mark. And it of course says that no man would be able to buy or sell without it, because John, the Apostle John, when he was showing this, he basically saw people lined up buying groceries in a supermarket, and he saw them using their hand to pay, their hand coming out, scanning their hand, scanning the chip in their hand, and that's how they were paying for their groceries. So we know this is coming. We believe this is coming in Daniel's 70th week. We believe it's coming in the first 3 years of it during the seals, when the Antichrist, whoever this person is, will cause this to happen. He may cause this to happen through some sort of legislation, or it may be from some other means that he causes this to happen. We don't really know how he will cause it. We just know he will cause it to happen by whatever method. Whatever thing he sets forth into motion will cause this to happen, where this type of technology called the Mark of the Beast system will be implemented. And it's not just in the United States or wherever. It's going to be worldwide. Like the Bible said, it said he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond. So it doesn't matter if you're in prison, you'll be in a situation where you got to receive it or not. If you're somebody who's popular in the world, you'll have to receive it. If you're wealthy, you're going to have to receive it. If you're poor and you're on the street, you're going to have to receive it. There is no way of getting around being in the situation where you accept it or not. And I believe it will be something that you accept, because this goes along with the Antichrist wanting to be worshipped as God. So this will be kind of something where you're basically saying no to Jesus, saying no to Christ, and you're saying that yes to the Antichrist. Part of your allegiance to him would be accepting the mark of the beast, accepting this chip implant into your hand or your forehead. But it would be worldwide. And I mean, think about this for a minute. It says he causeth all. The Antichrist causes all to receive this mark, right? So it's because of whatever the Antichrist does that causes this to happen. Now, by all, it doesn't mean every man and woman on the planet will receive the mark. What it means is he's causing all to be in the situation where they need to receive the mark or they are cut off. So they will be out there in the wilderness. They will have no services, like I said. They will not be able to buy food. They will not be able to do anything. No cell phones, zilch, nada. And the ones who will not be receiving it will, of course, be Christians. No Christians should be taking the mark. Once you receive the mark, it's very clear in the Bible that you are damned for good. There is no coming back from it. So I personally do not believe anybody who's saved would ever receive the mark. I don't believe that can be possible. I don't believe that can happen. I believe if somebody was supposedly saved, was supposedly a Christian, and they received the mark, I don't believe they ever really were saved, because why on earth would you do that in the first place? That makes no sense to me. Anyway, these people would be outcasts to society. And not necessarily all of them would be Christians. There would probably be other people out there that just refuse to comply that would also be out there. And at some point of time, this would lead to the people that would not accept the mark being hunted down, arrested, put in prisons until they were eventually executed. If they weren't executed or killed in a firefight trying to capture them in the first place, it would eventually lead to that. The Bible says that the Antichrist will make war with the saints and overcome them. So when it says all, it doesn't mean all will take it. It means all will be put in a situation where they're having to choose whether they want to accept that wicked mark of the beast, that new technology, or not. And if you think about the world, you know, there's always something new coming out. The phones are getting more high-tech. They're getting better. You know, this technology is here now for this to happen. But a few things need to happen for it to really get going. We need to move towards a cashless society where there is no money used no matter what. Because on that chip in the hand would be your bank account, your medical records. You know, for example, they're coming out with a new requirement to fly on planes now where you got to have a star card. You know, that would be on there. Eventually, all these things about you would be on your chip implant. And each huge event that happens in the world keeps inching us closer to making that chip in the hand a reality. If you think about, you know, something like in the United States with the Social Security number, you know, this happened long before I was alive, obviously, but when that was first being come out with, nobody wanted to have a number where they were identified by it. Nobody wanted to have a number they were identified by. Nobody wanted it, and people fought it. A lot of people got out of it without getting it, but little by little, next thing you know, every person basically has one. So, I mean, little by little, they end up getting everybody eventually with it, right? You know, then 9/11 happened, and we had things like the Patriot Act and stuff, and, you know, everybody was emotional because of what happened, obviously, for good reason. But we lost a lot of our rights when that happened. You know, all these little things, these huge events that keep going on through history, every shooting that happens, whatever the case may be, it keeps inching us closer towards that mark of the beast type control that's coming. And we know this. When you think about something like the star card, for example, that I was talking about, that's becoming a requirement where if you want to fly on an airplane, you have to show a bunch of proof of who you are, you know, birth certificate, a few different things to prove who you are, your identity. You got to come up with like 4 different proofs of identification, and on your driver's license now you'll get a star on there that it'll be a star card, and then if you have that, now you're allowed to fly on planes. See, like right now I don't have one. You know, I flew on a few planes last year, You know, no star card yet, no issues there, just fine. But now they're making it a requirement, and this is how they get you. They keep implementing these things little by little, more and more stuff like this, and people get it, and pretty soon the majority has it, and the minority is kind of forced to get it at that point. And this is what they do. This is how they forced the Social Security number. This is how they will force the star card. You know, all of our debit cards and stuff, they were fine swiping them, weren't they? There's no problem with swiping the card, but now they got the chip on there, and it's not really any faster at all. It's not faster. But what they're doing is they're testing out that technology with the chip, seeing how well it works. And of course, that has just progressed. You know, you have Apple Pay. You can just put your phone up there, pay on the thing real quick. And if you think about something like Apple Pay, that type of technology where you can put that up there and pay it, beep. That's how it's going to be with this chip in the hand. They basically would put their hand up there, beep, take the money out of their bank account, get their groceries, head on out. And all these little types of things like this that they keep testing and keep slowly implementing more and more and more are inching us closer towards it. It's all part of the master plan. They know what they're doing. They're not stupid. And people just accept it because, you know, to function in society, you almost need all these things now, right? I mean, think of how much you use your cell phone. And back when I was a kid, there were no cell phones. I remember when we had the corded phone. Then I remember when we had the cordless handset where you could walk away from its main base a certain distance, so then it wouldn't work if it was too far away. You know, and now we got cell phones and they do all this stuff. You know, it's going real quick. And when it comes to that RFID technology that is what we believe the mark of the beast to be, some form of that, that's been around for a while. So they easily have that in place where they could get something like that going at about any time. Now, what would it take to make something like that happen? Because you have all these different nations. A lot of the nations don't get along. We know the Antichrist is going to be setting up a new world order where there's a one world government. So basically one government that rules over all the governments in the different nations. So there will still be a, say for example, United States government, but it would be ruled over by the Antichrist government, right? That's coming. So how do you cause something like that to happen when all these nations are so different? So somehow the Antichrist will cause this to happen where this mark of the beast technology, this system that everybody's hooked up to, everybody's linked up to, they're able to be tracked, and everything's on there about them. Somehow he's going to cause this to happen with all these governments. Now, when you think about just the chip itself, when it comes to talking society into it, it really wouldn't be that hard to talk most people into it, because you would think about, well, you got a driver's license, you got a debit card, you have a Social Security card, you have your car keys, you have your medical records that the hospitals can pull up, but not all of them are going to have it. So if you're at one hospital, another hospital might have to fax over your records and so forth, blah, 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 all this type of stuff. Well, you know, people would get sick, and they already are sick of it, all the different things. And to tell everybody, well, you can have all this stuff on one thing, where you don't have to worry about keeping track of all of it, and you don't have to worry about losing it. Heck, you don't even have to worry about losing your keys, your car keys, your house keys, nothing. Sure, you've all seen the video where the guy has the chip in the hand and he starts up the car with his bare hand, right? Because he's got that chip inside it. And that has the codes that the car can scan it and it can fire up, right? It would be like that with all that type of stuff. So if you think, is that really going to be hard to talk younger people into accepting something like that? I mean, to them, that's going to sound so cool, right? They're going to be all aboard on that. If you look at today's current events and everything, a lot of the time they don't mind giving up their freedoms. They don't even know what we had before. So how could the Antichrist put forth that technology and get the whole world to jump on board with it? Well, there is a few ways that could be pushed. I mean, if you think about governments, sure, they're going to want everybody to have all their information on there, on the chip. Another excuse they could use to implement the chip would be as simple as even Amber Alerts. Children that are getting kidnapped and all these terrible things that happen. If the child is chipped, they'd be able to track where the child is and find that child. That would cut down on Amber Alerts. That would make that a much bigger difficulty for these sick people to try to do, right? So a lot of people would be on board with it for that reason. A lot of people would want their loved one, their older relative, to be chipped in case they wander off, which that happens sometimes. It's the same type of reason that the people are using the technology and have been for a good decade or longer in their pets in case they lose their pet. So none of it's far-fetched. It's not science fiction, this type of technology, or the desire for the world to want to use it. They're going to want to use it. Guaranteed. Everybody always wants the new phone, the newest, best technology, the newest, best device, whatever it is. Everybody always wants it. And a lot of these kids, these young people, are going to love being chipped and being able to start their car with their hand or whatever the case. Some businesses require you to have the chip to actually access their building. We saw that company in Wisconsin that was chipping their employees so they could use the vending machine and pay for stuff with the vending machine. I mean, that's just crazy. And that's just a company that basically was handed some money by somebody out there to test this technology for them. That's what that's really about. There's no really good reason for it. That's kind of stupid to put a chip in you to use a vending machine. That's pretty dumb. So somebody out there is pushing it and told them, hey, we'll give you this money, will you test this out? Anyway, somehow, some way, the Antichrist will end up head over all the governments, and all the different countries will have this Mark of the Beast technology implemented. The citizens will be getting it. Now, another thing to notice is when it's talking about the Mark of the Beast in the Bible, Revelation 13, it says, for those that receive the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. It seems to mention either 3 forms of it, or it could just be all one form and it's just 3 ways of naming it the same thing, like 3 different names for it. I don't know, but I think there's a very good chance there's 3 forms of it. By the way, it says receiving the mark of the beast or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Sounds like it could be 3 forms of that technology. And all of it's the mark of the beast. All of it will leave you damned for good, forever. There is no coming back. I can't stress that enough. You do not want to get it. Now, for now, we're okay. We have our debit cards and our things. We have our phones. It's not the mark of the beast yet. Nothing's installed in your hands. They're not putting chips in your hand yet. Some people do have chips, but it's not the mark of the beast yet, right? Like I said, this is coming, and every world event, every big world event we have seems to inch us closer. Now, the latest thing to inch us closer to the mark of the beast has been the coronavirus. Now, I'm sure many of you have seen the app they're pushing that can use Bluetooth and it can kind of track users. Well, I'm sure many of you have seen also how Google services and Apple services have implemented technology onto their devices. They did an update, put the technology on there that gives you the ability to control the app. So you can turn the app on and off. But for now, that technology requires you to download the app. So if you don't download the app, you don't have it. There is no tracking, supposedly. But they just went ahead and put that technology right on your phone. They just did the update whether you wanted it or not. And they didn't care what you thought about it or nothing, right? Well, with that in mind, that they installed this technology on the phone to control the COVID app. So basically what they put on the phone works with the COVID-19 app when you install it. So obviously they're hoping that you install the COVID-19 app, right? It's not like when you install some other app, some app you want on there, like say Facebook or something, where you install the app and then within the app you can decide your settings on it, right? Whether you want notifications on, whether you want it turned on, you can deactivate it, you can do all that stuff. You can do all that within the app itself. But this COVID-19 thing is different than that, because it's an app that you can download, and then the tools to control it are already on your Google services or your Apple services. And what that tells me is really coming is eventually, just like how they installed this technology on your phone to control that COVID-19 app, eventually the COVID-19 app is going to already be pre-installed on your phone. It's going to already be on there whether you want it or not. It'll just be something where you turn it on and off. And likely, it will probably say it's off, but it probably will never be turned off actually. And it leads me to believe that that is coming eventually, where they just push that in the phones, pre-installed COVID-19 app, because they installed the technology to control it on the phones in the services that run the phones, Google and Apple, right? Now, with this in mind, with the app and the Mark of the Beast technology, now think about the coronavirus for a minute. Think about how they've mandated places and they've shut places down, shut down all the states and everything, and they've required people to wear masks. Think about that type of control that's come out. Think about how, when it comes to vaccinations, when you have little kids and you have them in public school, think about how the schools demand that you vaccinate your children. And I'm not getting into a vaccine thing, whether you guys vaccinate your kids or whatever you do or not, doesn't matter to me, but I'm making a point using that, of how pushy the public school system is, the government, on whether you vaccinate or not. I mean, they're really pushy with it. They threaten you, they want to take your kids out of school, make you homeschool them, so forth. In reality, it's your religious right to not vaccinate if you don't want to, because they do use aborted baby parts in some vaccines, and there's a lot of other reasons you may not want to. So it's your religious right. But look how pushy they are with that type of stuff. Now, think about coronavirus. They're going to come out with a vaccine. Bill Gates talking about it. They're all talking about the vaccine, right? And they're saying it's not going to be mandatory. But they're really going to push it, and you know it. So you can put your kids back in school, they're going to say something like, well, you need to get this new coronavirus vaccine now. It's required for you to have your kid back in school. Now, thinking about that type of thing, eventually they probably won't allow people in businesses at all, adults, unless they've been vaccinated. I mean, this is where the world is heading. It's heading towards this type of dark place where you're forced to get a coronavirus vaccine if you want to go in certain businesses or you want to have certain functions in society. It's the same type of thing that the mark of the beast would be controlling. If you don't have the mark of the beast, you can't do X, Y, and Z. If you don't have the coronavirus vaccine, you can't do X, Y, and Z. Now, when it comes to the coronavirus, don't ask yourself, is the virus real? Is the virus dangerous? Instead, ask yourself, where did it come from, and what could be gained by its existence in the first place? What could be gained by its existence in the first place? Because we know where the world's going. We know the mark of the beast is coming. So what could be gained by the coronavirus in the first place? Not does it exist, not is it dangerous, is it deadly to people? That's really not the point. It's what will be gained by it. What freedoms are they going to take next? So right now you have a choice with these things, but you won't always have a choice, just like other things that you don't have a choice in, like the star card, like the social security number you just ended up with. You know, you didn't choose these things. You didn't want them. So what they're doing with coronavirus, even though it may exist, they're also using it to test out certain things, to see how the public will react to it. I mean, look how people have reacted to the coronavirus. Imagine how people will react when we're in the tribulation, when we're going through the seals, when things are greatly intensified and more things happening at the same time. I mean, the coronavirus is just a tiny thing compared to what it'll be like then. So with that in mind, something like the coronavirus and the app and the way they put it on Google services and just kind of force it on there, and they're just going to kind of slowly force everybody into it. It's all like putting a frog in a pot of water and heating up the water. The frog will just sit there till it boils, right? It's exactly what they've been doing. They slowly are inching us closer towards it, and events happen that help them lead to it. And believe me, if an event doesn't happen, they will make one happen to get to where they need to get next. It's like any movie where something will happen in the movie that moves the plot along, and whatever happens doesn't really need to even make any sense. You might be like, that was unnecessary. Why even? But the reason is because it was necessary to move the plot along. It's the same thing with this. They will make sure something happens, whatever needs to happen, to move along the agenda to slowly get us closer to that point, to this control. You know, the mark of the beast will happen. That is a fact. To deny that it's even possible to act like that's science fiction when you see the technology is a joke for anybody to act like that's not possible. So now that I've talked about that, to get back to how will the Antichrist get all the governments of the world that are underneath him to implement the mark of the beast to all the countries, and to be able to get all the countries to do it, to all the citizens in the countries to do it. How can he do that? Well, there's a few other ways it can be done, and I'm certain multiple things will be working together to achieve that, and there'll be multiple reasons that people want to do it. But look at the coronavirus. Look how it affected the entire world, right? Look how all these countries shut down, all these different nations, how they shut down and they reacted to it. So it took a global pandemic, a virus, to get the whole world to do something. Notice that? Took a pandemic to get the whole world to go along with something that the governments wanted them to do, to shut everything down, and all these different nations were doing it. One thing we know in the seals, in the tribulation, leading up to when the mark of the beast will come out, one of the many things that will be taking place is a global pandemic. There will be pestilences, the Bible says, okay? So I believe this is one of the ways that this will happen. There will be a pestilence, and we know there will be. The Bible specifically says it. And the whole world will be in a situation like we've seen with coronavirus, except for this time it's going to be worse, a lot worse. And they're going to go along with, yes, we need a vaccine because this pandemic, because this virus is out there. And if there's a mark of the beast type technology implemented where everybody has a chip in their hand and you can know everything about them, it'll be kind of like the COVID-19 app that you can get, where you can know different things that are going on, where you can keep track of who might be vaccinated and all these different scenarios with it. Well, the mark of the beast can be the same way, because what they'll say is, well, this pandemic is really bad. We can't afford to have people out there that aren't vaccinated. So the way we can control and know who's been vaccinated and keep track of it so that this doesn't break out worse or break out again is for everybody to get this chip implant. And then if you have the chip implant, we'll be able to tell when you enter a building or you go into a certain place. We can scan that. We can know, yes, you've been vaccinated for the coronavirus or whatever virus is out there. That's what a thing like the Mark of the Beast chip can do. And they will scare people with a pandemic, and everybody will run out and get it because people are dying. They'll be like, yeah, it's the right thing to do to get this Mark of the Beast chip in you. Not because the Bible talks about it and says you're damned if you get it. No, because they're not going to believe in that. They're going to badmouth that. They're going to mock the Bible. No, they're going to say it's the right thing to do because then we can prove and know who's been vaccinated and who hasn't. And it's not something where they got to show up with medical records to show, look, I've been vaccinated. No, they can scan them and they just know like that. And that way the public isn't at risk of letting somebody in who could be contagious and getting everybody sick, right? This is how the Antichrist can scare the globe into accepting the mark of the beast. This is one of the many ways it could happen. So, anyway, I hope you guys see what I'm trying to say here. I think a lot about it, like how this can unfold. And when you look at something like coronavirus and the way the globe reacted, and how a lot of people are getting mad at people that don't want to get vaccinated and stuff, it's easy to see how the world could go along with something like a global vaccination for a pandemic we know is coming before the mark of the beast, and the governments could say, we're coming out with this chip that you need to get surgically installed, and when you do that, you can put all these things on there, all your money and stuff, but also we'll have your medical records on there so we can know that these people have been vaccinated, and they'll make vaccines a mandated thing where you have to have it or you're cut off from society. And that's one way they can control that and know who's doing what and what's going on. Anyway, think about that. Let me know what you guys think.